Hi everyone, hello and welcome to EliteCISOs weekly podcast where we bring industry leaders to talk about various cybersecurity topics. Today we have Mr. Vinit Sinha, Director Cybersecurity at Mastercard. Welcome to the show, Vinit. Let's start with your quick introduction.
Thank you so much, Vikas. It's my privilege to be part of the Elite CISO podcast. I think this has been going for some time with the Elite CISO, but it's just my privilege here to be part of this conversation. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Vinit Sinha. I work with Mastercard as a director of cybersecurity, responsible of really taking care of the South Asia region. So anything and everything which is prevalent around cybersecurity across Mastercard from a South Asia perspective is something that I manage primarily, and not only the cybersecurity operations piece, but also the other areas which prevalent from the cybersecurity advisory practice, which has been newly formed by Mastercard, is something also which I manage for the organization.
Wonderful.
I have overall close to 15 years of experience into information security. I started my career from information security only, and during the days when it was BS 7799 to where we are today. So I think everybody is aware about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very nice. Welcome to the show. So, topic for today's discussion is OSCP certification, right? I'm sure if you're in cybersecurity, you know about what OSCP is. But we need give us high-level overview. You know what is OSCP certification, and then we will get into why OSCP. What's your journey has been around OSCP. So first, let's talk about what OSCP certification is all about.
Very interesting question, Vikas. So I think OSCP does not need any introduction, and it would be very unfair to really put that in small words for me. But I think, as we all know, OSCP, when you talk about, is something which is known as Offensive Security Certified Professional. It's basically a kind of a program and a certification which has been designed for the pen testers and the ethical hackers to really niche their skill in the field of pen testing and vulnerability assessment, so they are able to upskill to the requirements of what is going on in the market today by the methodology that are adopted by some of the hackers today. So the course has been primarily designed not just looking at just the theoretical side of the piece, but it has been actually designed looking at some of the practical aspects which the hackers or the adversary today adopt in order to really get onto any organization infrastructure or network. And based on that learning, the course has been designed so that the ethical hackers and the pen testers and the vulnerability assessment professionals who are there across these organizations have gained the right set of the knowledge, and including understanding the technology that has been adopted by some of these people, so that you are better prepared in order to really protect the organization infrastructure and network. So that is how I would like to put it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Very, very nice introduction. Very nice explanation about the certification. So, as you said, it's a technical certification. It is for pen testers who are conducting the assessment and all. And for the CISO level, right, on a senior level, CIOs and CISOs, they primarily go for, let's say, CISSP or CISM, which are more management-oriented certifications, right? Now,
Correct.
the the talk that we want to do is you being on a senior professional, senior leadership role in Mastercard, and a senior cybersecurity professional on a CISO level and all. So why would somebody at a CISO level should go for OSCP? Right. That's my first question. Is it relevant for CIOs and CISOs to get that technical and go for OSCP kind of certification? What is your opinion about it?
See, so I think today in the world of cybersecurity, where the attackers, their attack patterns, their attack methodologies are evolving day in, day out. As a CIO, CISOs, is very important for you not to identify just the attacker, but also to understand their attack pattern and attack methodologies.
True.
Why it is important today is because if you are not able to understand the attacker's methodology as to how they are actually looking at exploiting your organization or maybe somebody else's organization infrastructure, it would be really impossible to really have the right set of controls and the remediation measures in order to really protect the organization. So and then see what it used to happen almost like 2 years, 3 years back, is we were more of a process oriented people. And CISOs used to be more of a process oriented guys. We used to talk about ISO 27001. We used to talk about NIST. We used to talk about NIST CSF for that matter. But does it really help you in terms of really protecting your organization to the adversaries? The answer is both yes and no today. Okay. Because the attackers, their patterns, their methodologies are evolving day in, day out. Okay. And if you are not able to actually understand their methodology, their set of method as to how they are actually getting into your organization infrastructure, how are they actually exploiting some of the organization networks, it is very difficult that you will be able to identify the right set of controls to really protect your organization. Very interestingly, if you see today the threat hunting piece, right? We all talk about threat hunting, and we have been embedding some of these pieces into our security operation center. One thing that you will see and you will notice out of some of these analysis, that the attackers and their attack patterns are keep on evolving across different regions, different sectors, different segment of the organization. So if in case I am operating out of US and I am operating out of India, the same attackers method of actually exploiting some of the pieces in the US geography of your infrastructure or assets which are hosted there versus something which has been hosted in your India geography would be completely different. So it's important that you need to understand some of these pieces so that you have the right set of controls that you deploy for your organization.
True. Very true, very true. So yeah, I've been a techie all my life, right? I started with MCSE in 1998 and I kept on doing multiple certifications. So I'm a very vocal advocate of CIOs and CISOs getting technical. So it is really good to hear from you that okay, CIOs and CISOs should also go for technical certification like OSCP, right? Because it gives you that technical understanding in terms of how hackers are breaking in, what their techniques are, and then you can plan your defense, plan your controls accordingly. So very, very valid input on that. So let's talk about your journey, right? How did you start with OSCP? It's a technical certification, so you have to, I think there's a practical lab as well. So you have to literally put your fingers on the keyboard and then get going with it. It is not like CISSP that you can just read a book and go and click on multiple choice options and you clear the exam. It's not like that, right? So how your journey has been around OSCP? Did you take any training or not? Did you go for formal classroom kind of session? Talk about your journey, how it happened.
Yeah, so absolutely, Vikas. So I would say the journey started because of being jealous to somebody. And I think nobody really be so honest. Okay, so what has happened is I was part of EXL, and then I was part of the audit team within the organization. And that audit is primarily more about being more of a process oriented, right? It's less of technical. And then while we were doing some of these audits and when we were looking at some of the policy processes, one of an important aspect which always used to come across in the discussion with the management, that you come across with the same set of issues and nothing new that you bring to the table. So after 2-3 set of conversations which I had with the senior management and with the technical IT head of the organization, it was a primary discussion item that used to come across in each of the conversations. So I reached out to my manager at that point of time. I said, okay, Rajiv, I think it's high time that we have to look something more technical. And I think we need to do about it because this is something which have been getting picked up into each of the conversations. So Rajiv agreed to that. Yes, it's been something which we have not focused yet. And I think we should look at actually doing something about it. So we started looking for something more technical as to how do we actually expand our footprints and get more value addition to the organization. So during the research, we identified that, okay, offensive security is something that is been talked about at all point of time. And I think there is a merit that we need to have somebody who should be able to bring some value addition. So we look for few people across the through India, and then we found out one individual who recently passed OSCP at that point of time. I think this is something which I'm talking about in 2016. So that guy was a recent pass out of OSCP. So I said, okay, why don't we hire them and let's see what all value that is.
Right.
And luckily, the moment we hired him, within couple of days time after we hired him, he started doing some of external PT and then other activities, and we were able to bring in some really value addition to the organization.
True, true.
That actually ignited the entire thought process. Okay, if in case this individual is been able to, I think this is going to be the future. Maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line. I thought about it at that point of time that, okay, let me just also start working with him. And then probably, so I started working with him very closely, but never had that thought process that, okay, I'll do OSCP. But eventually when I was leaving EXL, I said, okay, I think it's time now that we have seen the benefits of this OSCP certificate. Let me also start on this journey. And that is where I started. Initially, I reached out to some of the institutes nearby my locality and then probably tried to see if in case they are offering OSCP, but none of them were offering OSCP. It was only CH that most of the folks were talking about.
Yeah, true.
So I reached out to one of the trainer who was working with one of the institute, and I said, can you customize the training program that you're offering in your institute? And can you build up something very close to OSCP and can you train us? So 3-4 of us individuals actually decided, okay, we'll go ahead and do a training, and we convinced that trainer to really embark on that journey. That is where the entire OSCP, and then we did some 3 months, 4 months of a formal program in terms of really understanding the length and breadth of the OSCP as to how it works. And he talked about all those scripting languages, Bash, and then he was very conversant to Ruby. So he said, okay, why don't you dirty your hands on Ruby? So we started getting into that. But that is where we started. But again, the thought process of actually doing that OSCP was the area where from EXL where we all started from. Then over the period of last 1.5 years, since I was working with Pine Labs before joining Mastercard as a CISO, I realized the importance even more being into the CISO role, because there were a lot of applications which were been there from the organization's point of view. And then there were a lot of web applications also that were getting hosted, including the mobile application. So I said, it's important that you need to understand some of these pieces in detail. So first, what I did was I started a crash course on a web application security, then did something on Android pen testing. And then eventually when I saw the importance of that, then I said, okay, let me also go ahead and do something more important, which is for the organization, something on the malware analysis piece.
Right.
So when I was able to actually achieve that, gave me a lot of confidence in stating that, okay, now I think it's a good time that in another 6-8 months time, I should be able to attempt the OSCP certification. And that is where then I thought, okay, let me just put it a structure, more formal structure around this. And then I spread across a plan, which was almost like 9 months to the journey. And I said, okay, let me accomplish this. And that is how I was able to actually appear for OSCP eventually.
Wonderful, wonderful, very nice. Because what I've seen is that by offensive security also there are online courses available and they are pretty expensive. I mean, even from Indian standards, they are like $2,000, $2,500 for the online class. Did you try
Correct.
to check those courses? I mean, did you take any of those courses or did you do it yourself? With your
No. This was all with the help of that trainer, and then all these 2 months, 3 months crash course, which I was able to really go through. That actually gave me a lot of confidence. So that helped me in terms of really. So while I was doing the program initially with the first trainer, how he helped me is he said that while you're talking about your OSCP journey, you should start working on creating a mind map. So for any kind of an attack, so let's say if you are using port 80 or port 22, or you are doing a combination of really exploiting both 80 and 22 together, you need to have a mind map together. So you need to put it every bits and pieces. So I looked at different resources across the internet, and then on Google, on GitHub, you'll find a lot of mind maps which are there talking about privilege escalations. So there is SE impersonate privilege escalation, and then there is something which is called as SE go on and impersonate escalation. So you need to understand the methodologies against each of these as to how they are going to actually get exploited.
Right.
And then I started putting that mind map together. That helped me in terms of really getting a very clear flow as to, okay, this is, if this is port 80, these are the set of tools that I need to do, and this is how I have to actually look at attempting those in terms of cracking it. So that gave me a quite of an overview. And the eventually the courses which I did at a later point of time was really helped me in terms of enhancing my skills and making the mind map more robust, so that is able to actually help me in terms of getting onto those networks.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So you cleared OSCP, right? Now you have given the exam, you got the certification and all. Now, as the offensive security or OSCP mantra is try harder, right? So that's what they tell in their labs as well. If you are not successful, keep on trying, and eventually you will get there, right?
Correct.
You did your certification, let's say 2020 or 2019. Let's say in 2022, they come up with a new version of OSCP, right? So their course is pen testing with Kali, right? PWK. Earlier,
Correct.
earlier it used to be, I think, Backtrack. Now,
Mm,
past few years,
PWB. Yeah.
yeah, PWP, and now it is PWK. So let's say if they come up with PWK version 1.2, are you still willing to put the blood and sweat into it and again go for the certification, get the latest one? Or do you think that now you have got the OSCP, you got the understanding, you have a strong concept around it? Do you have to really upgrade and go for the new certification when it comes, or you're comfortable with it? No, I know how it works. What's your take on that?
No, so definitely. So because PWB to PWK, there has been a lot of changes. So while I started my journey, it was on PWB. PWK got released very recently in the year 2018. So, and that also changed the entire format of what Kali Linux was also talking about. So, but yes, obviously, when you talk about the upgradation, obviously some of these pieces definitely help as an individual, and more from a technical aspect standpoint, more from a learning standpoint. Some of these pieces definitely help. The way some of the buffer overflow attack used to happen a little earlier, the methodologies have changed. Now obviously it's not a fixed methodology which any individual follows, okay, and to really hack some means you have to have different set of methodology and pattern, and everybody have to create his own way. But obviously that definitely helps, because if it keeps you abreast with the new set of changes, it helps you in terms of understanding the way the attackers are today seeing the world. Obviously today we are talking about less of AI ML in the entire methodology, right? We are more dependent on the scripts today. I am sure with the new version, when it will be brought in, I am sure there will be a lot of more automated tools which will be brought in. Uh, and then including some of the technologies that we are just talking about in the entire pen testing, which has been adopted by some of these attackers with in their day in day out methodology. I think this is definitely to get added into that the new set of release that we anticipate. So obviously this will help you as an individual, first of all, to really upgrade yourself and bring to the speed to the attackers which are there. The second is obviously this is going to help you in terms of understanding their patterns as to what is that you need to do in order to actually protect the organization infrastructure and systems.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I
Very,
would definitely say that, yeah, obviously I would like to definitely go with the next version
right.
once it comes in.
Very nice. Very nice. I wish I would have met you earlier. I did my training with Marty Aharoni back in 2009 in Black Hat, US. So that was around OSCP training. And at that time,
Okay.
my thought process was that okay, I am a CISO. I don't really need to go for this certification. I've taken the training, so I'm comfortable with it. I don't have to really try harder to do the
Correct.
right. But yeah, I really appreciate your thought process that okay, you have gone through the pain, you have gone through the training and everything. Now go for the certification. So that's always a good idea. Great. Um, so yeah, as I've gone through the training and you also talked about it, the scripting is required as part of OSCP certification, right? So you got to put your hands on the keyboard, you got to understand Bash scripting, and sometimes little bit Python is also thrown in. So do you think scripting is required, let's say at a CISO level, somebody wants to go for OSCP certification. So do they have to understand scripting and be good with it? What's your take on that?
Yes, so I'll tell you one thing which is very important, and that's primarily from the exam perspective, that while you are appearing for OSCP exam, uh, you can use the meta exploit in only one of the machine. And there are close to 5 or 6 machines. So I am not supposed to really speak on the exam pattern, but there are close to 4 or 5 machines which are there, and you are only allowed to use Metasploit on one of the machines. So it's very important that you have to really understand the manual ways of really exploiting these machines. Now, you may at times find the exploit directly available over Google, which you can use in terms of really exploiting your machine. But there might be chances that some of these exploit may not work directly on your machine, and you might have to change some of the pieces in the exploit that are available. So it will say, okay, for this version, for this service, you have an exploit which is there, but it might not actually work. For example, especially on the buffer overflow related machines, uh, some of the pieces might not directly work. You might have to change the script at some pieces, and there it is important that you are able to have you are having that understanding of the scripting language, where you are able to actually embed some of those pieces into the script and able to exploit.
Right. I want to ask something again on this one itself. So you said scripting is required. Now, in the training, I have seen that okay, you have to understand assembly as well, right? So you open Idea Pro, and then you have to change some values in the assembly language as well. Is it also required? I am not trying to
Yes,
scare people.
yes,
I'm not
yes,
trying to
yes,
scare them,
yes.
right? So,
Buffer overflow machines are completely dependent on IDA Pro.
yeah,
So you have to have understanding. There is something called as value, which is identified, which is basically the buffer value. Okay, it's critical to identify that, because if you are not able to identify, you might not be able to really run the exploits. And uh, just for your understanding and for the group's understanding, you might have to use that buffer overflow scripting at least 4 to 5 times within the same machine. So that could also be a possibility, that you might have to keep on changing your script 4 to 5 times before you actually are able to really get onto that machine. Now, it could be based on the buffer value. It could be based on the script that you are using. You might have to also change some of the pattern of the scripts. So that could also be possible.
very nice, very nice. Makes sense. So again, the mantra is try harder. Do not get scared with the scripting, and then you have to understand the Idea Pro or the assembly. It is just that you go through the flow, you understand the process, you go through the training and all, and you would be able to do it, right? That's about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Correct,
Uh,
correct, correct.
and talking about this certification, as you said, there is a lab and there are 4 machines and all, and it is not a multiple choice kind of question answer kind of certification. You have to practically exploit the machines, and I think it's a 24 hours that you get for exploitation and reaching to the goal. What's your take on this practical aspect and 24 hours of lab time or exam time? How do you cope with the 24-hour kind of scenario? Is it not too much of pressure that you got to clear this?
Absolutely. See, earlier I have heard that in the erstwhile era, when this PWB used to happen, and there was no invigilator who was there monitoring you day in, day out. Okay.
Right.
Now that has changed. Okay. So in 24 cross 7, when the 24 hours, when you are sitting for the exam, somebody is watching you. So even if you are trying to open a book, you'll immediately get a pop-up on your machine stating that please don't move, don't turn your head, don't look here and there. So
Right.
you have to just watch straight away onto the machines, and you cannot just even move your head here and there. Even for if you have to get a water, you have to tell him in advance that okay, I have to get a glass of water, and then only then he says okay, just pause the machine, and then probably you can go for it. So it's actually tough, because to be very honest, 24 hours of exam, I have never appeared for that. I remember the last time which I did was something of a CISSP, and then that took quite a time back, right? Uh,
Right.
and that point of time, even that 6 hours used to seem like tough job to really sit for that long.
Hmm,
Uh,
hmm.
But this 24-hour exam have actually, so while I was thinking about how to really prepare and how to actually start giving this exam, I thought about really taking it up at more at during the night. So one thing OSCP taught me is that you have to be a night owl. Okay. So if you have to really pass it, you have to leave everything aside for some time. You have to really think through that. Okay, I have to only concentrate on OSCP.
True, very
So I started my exam somewhere around 9:30 in the night. And I decided, okay, and I started on a Saturday evening, and I thought, okay, on a Sunday evening, I'll be able to complete it. And one day I'll get in terms of really writing the report. Uh, by the time I was somewhere around 2:30, I was like damn sleepy. I was feeling like I cannot sit for longer. And I think I was used to it because I was really driving till 5 in the morning. But because of the pattern, with the extent of uh, thought that, okay, you are writing an exam and it's quite tough, you have to actually pass it. There are you cannot really go have a multiple attempts onto it, and it's just a waste of time on after that. So I thought that, okay, in the first attempt itself, I should be able to really clear it rather than waiting for multiple attempts, because obviously it demoralizes you,
right.
given if you have to sit for multiple set of exams. So I thought, okay, in one go I have to, but at 2:30 in the night, I was under tremendous pressure, and I said, okay, no, it's time now that I should take a nap. I went ahead, took a nap for an hour, and then again I start the machine around at 3:30. Uh, 3:30 to 9, I was able to really sit for the exam. But then after that, I said, no, now it's not possible for me. Then again, I took a 2 hours nap. And then again at 11:30 in the morning, I said, okay, let me just go ahead and start it. But it's definitely, it's tough. It's tough because you really need to see which machines are there, what kind of machines are there, what is the exploit, as I talked about. There's no one method of really exploiting, and each of the machines are different. Okay, all the 5 machines, which or 6 machines that you see, they are different set of machines. So it's not that one specific methodology or pattern is something which you will be able to really crack it. uh, so what I did initially, that while I was starting my exam on all the 5 machine, I started running the nmap and then the script on top of it, so that I am able to actually have the right set of output in terms of what all are those services. And then once I had those set of services and their version, what I started doing is that I started researching immediately on Google, and then they allow you to do all those. So they say, okay, you're free to use Google and then search for exploit. Uh, 2 of the machines I was able to do it effectively, and I was able to really crack it by 2:30 in the night. But the other 3 were pretty hard. And then I said one of them was, I have already talked about it. One of them was actually very, 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 very difficult. So I said, okay, this would be the last one to really, which I'll pick it up, and then probably I'll see how really I need to move it. But the other 2, I was started working on it, and I said, we talked about the tool that we were using. So the same methodology I adopted and then started, but I was aware about that. Okay, in 1 or 2 instances, the machine is going to get break, but there were almost like 4 or 5 times where you have to actually change the script. So it was tough call, obviously, and I was even not prepared that, okay, up to 5 times I have to go ahead and change the script and keep on trying that. So but eventually by in the morning 9:30, I was able to crack the other 2 also. But the last one, I kept on trying till the end, but unfortunately, that was the most difficult of the pieces, and I was not able to really make it through on that one.
Okay, pretty tough, pretty tough. So, as we will post this podcast on our YouTube channel and EliteCISO website as well. And when CIOs and CISOs will go through it, some of them might take the challenge, right? They might want to go for OSCP. It might motivate some of them. So let's say somebody wants to go for OSCP certification, right? We have tried to scare them enough, scripting and then assembly language, Idea Pro. You have to be night owl and everything. So what is your suggestion? What is your guidance that if somebody wants to go for it, how should they do it? And I'm not talking about the network engineers or the pen testers and all. I'm talking about our group of CIOs and CISOs. And if somebody from the group wants to go for it, what is your recommendation? How should they
See,
proceed?
see, you should not, first of all, you should not take that this is most hardest certification. I think it's just a matter of thought. So first you have to put yourself in a frame of mind that if I have to really go ahead with this certification, I have to go ahead and crack, achieve it. That should be your end goal. Okay. Now, to start with, I think the first important piece is that you need to get yourself familiarized with some of the commands which are very important from a Linux standpoint, from a Windows. So I think a lot of us really do not understand as a CISO or CIO. Correct. So it's important that you first understand some of the commands which are there within the Linux world, within the Windows world, using PowerShell for that matter. How do they work, and how are they going to give you what kind of results? So that is something which you need to understand. You need to understand what command is giving you what kind of a result and an output. Once you are able to understand that, I think the second piece that you should do is you should need to understand about bash scripting and Python. So now Python, not necessarily Python, it could be Ruby, it could be Perl. It's up to your choice, whichever you find inconvenient, because any one of them, if you are able to understand, it gives you the understanding in terms of the flow of the scripting. So nobody will ask you to actually work on a script right from the scratch. Right. Is that you have to just understand the flow of the script, and you will just need to customize some of the pieces. Okay, like if flow, if statement or for statement, which we all would have studied from our childhood, during our engineering days, during our schooling days. So C, C++, some of these pieces are already there, and that's the same set of method that are being used even in today's world. So even in Python, you are using that if statement, for statement, which is already there. So I think it's not that hard. All you need to do is just you have to put that frame of mind that, okay, I am going back to my college days or to my schooling days, and then I need to just open up some. So many of us, I referred my nephew's book. He is in class 10th. So he had that C, C++ piece which is coming in, and then that very basic. So I said, okay, why don't you lend me a book for some time, and I'll just go through it. That helped me clear some of the concepts, basic concept. So I think that is something how you have to actually think through. Once you are through with the scripting, then obviously, as I talked about, you need to go through the PWK materials. Uh, it might be possible that you have to register for the lab, or you might also get it available freely across some of the community or network. So you can just go ahead and reach out to them, and then you can get those materials. Once you are able to get hand on those, I think you need to just go through some of these material a little more in detail, and then understand the practical aspects as to how some of these services and versions are getting exploited. And I think then you're good to go. I think, and then my serious recommendation is that just undertake a training program for, let's say, a couple of months, and that will give you a set of understanding about some of this critical concepts. So first, I would recommend is that you do a self-study for an initial 2-3 months, then go ahead and do a program that will help you in terms of clearing all your doubts that you have, and it will help you in terms of gaining the appropriate knowledge. You can have the right set of questions raised to the tutor and to the experts, and they'll be able to answer those. And then once you are through with it, I think another 2-3 months of journey after that is good for you to really appear for OSCP.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sounds great. Sounds great. So I think with your motivation with this podcast, a lot of people will think that okay, they can try harder and they can go for the OSCP certification. So thanks, Vinit. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge, your experience with the community, and really appreciate you taking out time and getting on the podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Vikas. Thank you so much. Pleasure speaking.